Good morning. Welcome all of you who are here online and in class. I'm really happy that we have been going on with our spring school this morning or this midday with one of the most important or crucial topics and fields of law and fields of social life, so the family and the family law, and with reconsidering of the issues of family and especially of the family law from the feminist perspective. And I have really a great pleasure to present or to announce that today we will have two our friends and colleagues as the lecturers who have been coming from the consortium partners of the LOGEM project. The first one is Dr. Zara Saeidzadeh. Zara, I apologize if I did not pronounce your surname well. You will correct me when you start if it's necessary. If I made too big mistake in that pronunciation, Zara is the postdoctoral researcher at the Örebro University and one of the main lecturers at their gender studies, and she was extremely active and contributive within the LOGEM project in all respects, and she also took part in writing a few chapters of the textbook Gender Competent Legal Education, and really did a remarkable job in that respect. She will speak about family from a gender perspective, so that will be the first lecture. The second lecture will be given by Associate Professor Letizia Coppo. She used to work at the time of our LOGEM project duration at Lumsa University, so Örebro, Lumsa University, Saarland University and Cadiz University, so Sweden, Italy, Germany and Spain, together with us from Serbia and from the Belgrade University, were the consortium members. So Letizia also took a very active and contributive part in the work of the LOGEM project. Later she moved to the University of Lyon, but in France, but fortunately we had her during our LOGEM LOGEM conducting or developing with us and at Lumsa University. Her lecture will be titled Gender Perspective of Married and Unmarried Couples and Consequences of the Divorce and Separation. And the third lecture will be given by our assistant, Ivana Barać, and she will speak about family violence. I mentioned once, I think at the beginning, that the idea was that all professors from the Faculty of Law give the lectures for all courses, because this spring school has been imagined, and I think that was a great idea, as the tool for our professors, and they are preparing lectures for the Law and Gender master's program when it will be accredited, and it has been in the process of accreditation. Just to mention once again that Lumsa University, together with with Örebro University and Belgrade University, will go on with the application for the joint masters in law and gender. So if we manage and if we get that grant, we will work further on and make the international joint our common master's program later on. So these are parallel paths. First is our accreditation here at the Faculty of Law. Lumsa University has already accredited this master's program, but when we make it as the common one, then all professors will give jointly lectures for different courses, and a huge number of students from everywhere will have the opportunity to get scholarships for the duration of that really internationally created master's program. But we have the pleasure today that our colleagues from these consortium universities take part in the lectures. And of course, when we will start with implementing the Law and Gender Master's program here at Belgrade University, we will invite them again and many other colleagues from the consortium partners. So thank you very much. I really have a great pleasure and honor to have you, Zara, and you, Letizia, together with us, and I hope that you will enjoy and that students will enjoy this, how to say, difference today, this morning that we have our guest lectures. Thank you, and Zara, the floor is yours for your lecture, Family from a Gender Perspective.
Hello, hi. Thank you so much, Professor Vujadinovic. You spelled or pronounced my name perfectly. That was great. Thank you so much, and thanks for the introduction. Yes, as Dragika said, we are going to talk about family today, and I will start with talking about family from a gender perspective. I know I can't see all your beautiful faces here, so it's a bit difficult to have an interactive lecture, but I do my best. So I want to start with debunking this title of this lecture. So I think everybody knows by now what gender is and what do we mean when we talk about gender. If anybody wants to talk, you can just raise your hand or just drop me or interrupt me or whatever you like. It's all good to just stop me when I'm talking and you just give your opinion or share your thoughts if you have any. So what is gender? I take it for granted that everybody knows, but let's say gender is a way for us to order our social practices and relations. And also, we know that gender is a matter of social relations and social structure, right? So we know what gender is and what we are talking about. But today, I would like to talk about gender perspective. What is gender perspective in family? This is the agenda. I will talk about family policy in the Nordic region, a general view of how family is approached in the Nordic countries. And then I will specifically talk about the Swedish approach within the Nordic countries towards family policy. Then I will talk about the shortcomings and the critiques that is being made about the Swedish family policy and see what are the rooms for improvement within the family policy in Sweden. So this is the agenda for today. So gender perspective. When I talk about gender perspective, I talk about considering gender and seeing gender as the base for differences that has been made within different policies or considering different social phenomena and processes. According to the European Institute for Gender Equality, this is the definition that has been used, like understanding gender-based differences. But I would like to also stress on the fact that gender perspective has no one meaning or understanding. it depends how you define gender in different contexts and understand gender, and how you want to achieve equality and what equality means in different contexts and in different societies. Based on that, gender perspective might be understood or defined or conceptualized differently. So, but it's basically, if you want to know what gender perspective is, as you might know by now, it's to work towards gender equality, have the perspective of understanding gender justice, as I said, between people, to achieving gender equality, to see how discrimination and violence shapes needs and interests of different people based on their gender, right? So I've been talking about gender equality. So what is gender equality? Who can tell what gender equality is? If you want to talk, as I said before, please just interrupt me. Is gender equality about women and men? Is gender equality talking about just having equality between two groups of people? Or is it about being inclusive and having some other people included in the equality projects? We have other understandings, as I said, gender equality, but obviously gender equality started with the women's movement, and they have the base and the reason to fight for equality. So it started by women and women's movements. They were the ones who were disadvantaged by men and boys to begin with, and the patriarchal society and the patriarchal structures. So that's why it started with women. But it doesn't just talk about women. Now, when we talk about gender equality, it's not just about women's rights or women's equality. It's about all different other genders and sexualities, thanks to feminist movements and women's rights activism. But what has been starting this fight for gender equality? It's been women who have claimed for justice historically, right? So I want to ask this question. What is family? Can anybody tell me what family is from the audience, the students? Okay.
Hello.
Family. Yes.
May I try with the definition?
Yes.
I'll try with the family is a social smaller unit made of a couple of people with or without their offsprings.
Okay. Perfect. Any other thoughts? Does everybody else agree with this definition or wants to add?
Excuse me. As I know, a nuclear family is a term used for a couple, husband and wife, and their children. But we have also another term of family which is a bit expanded, like brothers, sisters, some grandmas, grandfathers. I mean, these are also can be included in the family.
Okay, that's great. Any more ideas? You agree? Yes, as it may seem, it may feel or seem very trivial and taken for granted what family is. As you guys defined, family may mean different things in different societies as well, and there are different, and it's constantly developing and changing. Its definition changes according to how humans' relations and how humans' practices and our society is moving towards different kind of changes, right? Family has been a very crucial train of struggles for achieving gender equality and gender justice, especially for women. It is not possible to talk about family and family law and do not talk about gender. So when you want to understand family, there is always a gender component in it that you have to understand as well. Or there are gender relations and gender practices that has to be taken into account. In studying gender perspective in family and family law, it is very important also to understand and think about the processes of evolution of family, how family started to begin with and shape as an institution, as one of you just very finely mentioned the nuclear family, for example, and how it has moved to change differently, and how it is constructed differently in different parts of the world. We are not just talking about one kind of understanding of family, so we need also to remember that. So because the institution of family, the way it is constructed and its relations and relationships and practices within the member of the family changes, then it also has a resemblance of how the legal and political system in that context is in power. So I would say, if you want to see how a society or a system or a legal system or a political system in a country works, you look at the family, how the family law is and how the family is kind of constructed. It is a very important area. For example, if you see a patriarchal family, so I just take it for granted that in this program, everybody knows what I'm talking about when I say patriarchy, for example, or gender essentialism, or some concepts that I use, right? So does everybody know what patriarchy is? Or should I explain? Yes?
Yes, we understand.
Yes, okay. So the patriarchal family, when I talk about the patriarchal family, for example, in this kind of family, the family is the seed of the patriarchal state, for example, like the cornerstone of the state's power to control. The idea that, for example, this is the idea of patriarchal family, that a stable family is perceivable only with men as the head of the household, men as the only person who has the power in the family and can control. And the only person who is legally recognized is the man in the family. And while women and children are inferior. So that is the kind of family that's understood in the patriarchal system. It's called patriarchal kind of structure of family. So that is how the state has control over the nation in this type of family. So this sort of patriarchal structure of family has been in place and is still in place in some countries. Some have changed, but still it exists. They did not go away. This kind of structure did not go away until women started to stand up for their rights. And that is historically what has happened within family and family law, demanding equality of rights within marriage, divorce, custody, maintenance, and all sorts of different rights that they were not given because they were not even considered a legal person or recognized within their family. So women's struggle for equality in family started very early, mid-19th century, 1800, if not in the other parts of the world, at least in Europe, which has led to different forms of changes. So this is why family is thought to be one of the main areas for the women's movement in Europe and other parts of the world as well. It's an area in which fight for gender equality has been going on for a long time. Before I explain the changes that has happened within the family and why these changes have happened, I would like to know if you know how many models of family exist. One of you mentioned the nuclear family, and so can you think of any other models of family that you can know or you think exist in contemporary society, for example?
Hello, I'm Nemanja.
Yes.
I have one tab to suggest single parent families. I can see there are a lot in reality single parent families.
Perfect. Okay, that is absolutely true. So it's not just the traditional form of family that is consisted of one man, one woman, and perhaps there are children, or it's that is how the relations, people's relations to themselves and to society has changed. That is also due to gender, right? And sexuality that has been developing in different societies.
Zara, you have in the chat also some responses. For example, homo family, but just have a look of the chat.
Yes. Okay. So there are two types of main types of families that have been identified. One is the gender differentiated family model, and the other one is the dual earner, dual carer family. So in the gender differentiated family model is something that, as we already talked about. So it's based on the gender of the person. The parental roles and responsibilities are given. Usually consists of a man and woman. So the woman's domestic work is taken for granted in this kind of family model, and sometimes men being a breadwinner work also is taken for granted. In the dual earner and dual career family, for example, it's both partners or any partner. How many partners? So I have this has also been a bit maybe reformed, this dual earner. Sometimes we have 3 members of the family, but this is how they have classified. So it's the shared responsibility within the family, whether it is a child care or whether it is provision of like financial resources and all of that. I'm sorry, I'm going to concentrate on doing the lecture, so I can't have time to read the chats. Maybe after I finish the lecture, I can read them. But if you just want to interrupt me while I'm talking, that you're very, very welcome to do that, and I would be glad to hear your thoughts.
I have one question. What about common law partnership?
Sorry, what did you say?
What about common law partnership?
Yes. So in this partnership, how many partners exist? Are they consistent of partners who both contribute into the family and both are caring about the child, or there is one partner who is like called a breadwinner, or is one partner is working the domestic work? So based on the gender of people, these kind of family models are classified. Right? So that depends on what are the partnership, how is the partnership consisted of, even in common law. And they are recognized, right? So we will have to find out what you mean by these partners. Okay, so what is family policy? Usually when we talk about family policy, there are some content in the policy. Based on like in different in different parts of the world, family policy is different, but I have just put this slide here from OECD countries, the Organizations for Economic Cooperation and Development. These countries have some aims that they follow within family policy to reduce poverty, to help the economy of the family members, especially children. Employment for women is important, one of the aims of the family policy, achieving gender equality and supporting child development, and also raising the birth rate. These are the aims, for example, in a family policy.
Zara, excuse me for interrupting you, but as far as I'm concerned, I only see the title slide. It does not move. Do you move your slides?
Me too.
Yes, I am on slide 6.
No, so that's not moving. We are still.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I am moving the slides now. Can you not see any movements in the slides?
Oh.
No, I have to call the IT again.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. Oh, perfect. Okay, that's a problem. So I don't know how to fix it.
No, I will call our IT. Just go on, and then you will.
Okay, I'm so sorry about this. I didn't know you. So you have not seen my beautiful slides.
Nothing.
No.
I had prepared all these nice slides. Okay. All right. Okay, you can only see the first one. Okay, sorry. So I made it just because of not losing time. Maybe I will continue until the IT person can come. Okay, so examples of family policy, right? Now, how do you understand family policy and family law if we just talk about family policy? Do you think what is included in a family policy? Do you have any ideas? Can you give me some examples? What are you most interested in looking into family policy and family law?
Hello, can I try? I'm Nemanja. So I'd say family policy is a way of making legal norms about inter-family relationships and also duties, obligations, and rights between members.
Yes, perfect. Yes. Any more ideas? So family policy usually, as you said, it's to regulate. So what is usually included, like the main areas that are covered by family policy? It's usually childcare, right? Reproduction, sexuality, and maybe economy, and also violence. Divorce, the rights of the partners in the family. So these are included in the family policy. Now you can see my slides. What counts as family policy is usually the examples as I gave you. It contains childcare, reproduction, sexuality, talking about abortion, for example, adoption, the state of marriage and divorce, and some of these will be taken up by the other lecturers today as well. For example, violence and separation and divorce. These are included in the family policy. So next slide. The factors that have been contributing to the development of a more egalitarian family and family policies, from being more influenced by patriarchal traditional forms of family to a more egalitarian kind of a family institution and policy within the policy. So things have changed. The society has developed and progressed. Laws and policies have undergone changes throughout history, differently in different contexts, right? We should also consider that. More egalitarian families have been developed because of the plurality of how we identify ourselves, our genders, our sexuality, or all different other backgrounds. And as I said before, the ways in which human relations change, right? One of the structural changes that has contributed to this sort of changes is associated also with the industrialization period, the separation between home and the work activities. That has been one of the ways that has contributed to change and development of family. The role that women have played in labor market, their increasing participation in the labor force has changed the structure of family itself as well. So family in a modern, let's say, industrial society has been changing quite rapidly since after the Second World War. Historically, it's been evident that changes have happened in how the family is formed in terms of different modern or more developed countries. Women, as I said, have gained power because of their participation in the labor market, and that has also they have been investing in capital, kind of economic capital, cultural cap. They have received cultural capitals as well. So during maybe the decades of 20th century, some traditional heteronormative gender binary family has kind of been developed, not totally changed, but has been replaced with some multi kind of understanding of what a family can be constructed. And those are, as I said, due to women understanding their rights and fighting for their rights. The rate of divorce has gone up. Women have demanded participation in labor force, and they have also become the head of household. That is totally opposite the patriarchal kind of family structure. So the development of sexuality and gender, as we talked about, and also the deconstruction of essentialist understanding of gender. And many feminists, intersectional feminist research, as I have also contributed how family models and family understanding of family, to that extent, the policies that have been introduced within the area of family and family policies changed as well. So also, as I explained, same-sex couples cohabitations, for example, and they're being more visible and recognized by society, has also changed and contributed to how family policies are developed and changed. And also the structure of family in society has changed due to the visibility of more same-sex cohabitation, same-sex marriage, and different sexualities. I want to stress that all in all, the development of family and family law is the result of robust feminist movements and LGBTQ groups around the world, and the recognition of human rights through international and national legal documents. Equality, non-discrimination treaties on the grounds of gender, sexuality, class, race, ethnicity, religion, and ability, for example, all of that. Having a family policy based on gender equality is very important and necessary to develop a society, because it disrupts, as we talked about, the structure of traditional mainstream family law that is based on patriarchal system, right? A system that values and privileges men, and a system that is based on gender binary, which amounts to violence, discrimination against a group of people, basically mainly women.
Zara, excuse me for interrupting you. So shall I still be at the slide 8?
Yes.
And
I will tell you when you have to change.
Okay. Can I just interrupt you with one comment or?
Yes, please.
So the development of a more egalitarian family, from a theoretical methodological perspective, maybe I suppose you will agree, to stress or to clarify the framework of analysis of the modern and contemporary, especially contemporary family. So this more egalitarian family, in this articulation, means family which contains many emancipatory elements based on the feminist movement, based on human rights, based on the achieved universal right to vote, based on the inclusion of women in big numbers into the labor market and achieving a bit more or less of economic independence, etc., etc. So this trend, but I accepted that theoretical methodological approach. So that is that emancipatory, more egalitarian within the emancipatory trend as one of the trends which characterize modernity and contemporary times. However, more egalitarian also implies that there are elements of patriarchy still, and these controversies between these two tendencies within those more or less egalitarian, depending on different concrete historical contexts. Maybe much more egalitarian in Sweden than in much more egalitarian than in Sweden than in Serbia or in Afghanistan, but still this dialectic between emancipation and patriarchy has been there, embedded into each contemporary family. So do you agree with that articulation of the same content?
Yes, absolutely. It's all connected. So it's not a like a independent entity, family and family policy. It's very much integrated into all different other areas at intersection with so many other areas that feminist movements and other groups of activists have been fighting for. But as you said, it depends, and it's very much contingent on the context that we are talking about at the same time. Some sort of equality and human rights approaches might not be applicable in different contexts. For example, there must be some different ways of achieving equality for different contexts that exist, for example, in some other countries. Yes, I agree with whatever you mentioned. So now we know that things are changing and developing, but still other countries, and I said before, the system of power that is in place in a context resembles the way they manage family, and family has been one of the core elements of having control in society. And the state, for example, has had, like, it resembles the way states control the population or the nation. Now I want to move on to the family policy in the Nordic countries. So yes, change the slide. I want to talk about there are 5 Nordic countries, obviously, and they have had all different kind of trajectories. They are not similar. So when I talk about Nordic, it doesn't mean they are all the same. They have specificities, and they have different kind of differences, and important differences, actually. So, but they have gone through this Nordic model of which is very prominent, and you may have heard about the Nordic model, and it has also reached the family policy. So there is a Nordic approach to family policy as well. So I would like to talk about that, but I will specifically talk about Sweden. Why? It's not because I have lived in Sweden, but also because Sweden has scored first in the Gender Equality Index in 2022, and among all different other countries. So we will look at how Sweden has been working towards family policy, and if and how there are rooms for improvement. And I would like you to pay a little bit more attention, because I'm going to talk about all these amazing things about Nordic and especially Sweden within family policy. But I want you to look at it with your critical kind of lenses on. And I will ask you, what do you think needs to be improved, or what are your critiques about this kind of approach? That is how I think we should do that. So I'm not going to homogenize all these countries. I'm not going to say that Nordic model is the perfect model for all the countries that they should apply. I will say, I will look into the Nordic approach, and we'll see how it is working, and if it's not working. So next slide. I want to start with a very collective action that happened in the Nordic countries. All the 5 Nordic countries came together and made a committee to reform a very important law, which is marriage law, thanks to the feminist and women's groups movement in the very early 1900s, so 1909. It involved women's movement, as I said, and women's movement started to work on the marriage law since 1880 to work for the reform of marriage law. So it became a central issue for women's movement in the Nordic. And the early start of family law reform took shape actually within this kind of reform through the marriage law reform, as I said. They demanded to repeal husband's authority in the Marriage Act, in the marriage law, because until then the husband and the man was the breadwinner, the head of the household. So they wanted to remove that, and also wanted to grant women the economic independence in the family. So the Nordic marriage model, or the Nordic marriage law, was the product of the reform, was the product of this committee that called Nordic Law Committee. it was before the First World War that they started working on it, and then by 1929 all the Nordic countries had reformed all the marriage contracts, and there were all these outcomes that were very good for women and the women's emancipation. And the outcome was there was the liberal formation of dissolution of marriage, and they could, because until then women did not have the right to divorce. Gender equality was one of the main effects of this marriage reform. So it was very important to start reforming family policy, and it started very, very early, right? So pay attention to the date, the 1900s. So that's when they started to work on family policy. So and this has helped now the development and the progress that we see now, because it is like 100 years history behind this. So you can go to the next slide. So as we see in the family, in the Nordic countries, gender equality policy started to develop well earlier than many other parts of Europe, as we can say, if not the whole world. So as early as 1800, mid 1800, with regards to the lives of women, and they started having women to be present more in public. So what is the overall Nordic approach to family policy is that the work and family were reconciliated. There was this collective commitment to have childcare, and also parenthood became something political. So from being personal, it became more political. So it became a responsibility of the state as well. So that is how the general Nordic. Yes. So the next slide. The key to having a more gender equal family policy within the Nordic region is that there is a link between the gender division of unpaid work, like the domestic work that has happened inside the house, and the gender equality in the labor market. So what has happened? I have this triangle in here for you to show that there is a link between the state, the family, and the labor market. All of these are connected, and the state helps the family. And it, as I said earlier, it became a political issue. So state is involved, and they make sure that the caring about family does not affect the labor their participation in labor. So they also have opportunities to continue being in the labor market. So this approach has been informed by the dual carer and dual earner model of family, which I mentioned earlier, which means the right to care, the right to work as well, and also have parental leaves and childcare. And then they introduced individual taxation system instead of family taxation. So you can go to the next slide. Yes. So the Nordic family policy model is, as I said, based on a dual earner, parental leave, and childcare is very important. And something else that is been discussed within this model is the defamiliarization. Can someone know, or do you know what the defamiliarization is? And have you heard about it? Do you know what it means? Just what comes to your mind? Anybody? Okay, so defamiliarization is a concept that is being used to refer to the welfare state's relationship with family. So the state's relationship to family. So what happens in the defamiliarization, I mentioned it earlier, that the family became something public. So family is not something private we hide and everybody should take care of their own family, we don't interfere. State interferes very strongly and helps the parents, helps the children, helps them to continue being in the labor market. So family becomes a public matter. That is the way it's been explained as defamiliarization is
Sorry. Can I just ask, does it mean also questioning authority in making decisions for parents? Instead of
Members of the family?
yes, instead of them to state to make decisions, no?
Well, the state makes decision. That's one of the critics that has been given to this kind of system. So the state makes decision. Actually, you have a good point. The state makes decision. The state involves this. When the state gets involved, it's the state who defines what kind of needs are going to be met within the family and which kind of resources the state gives and what are the needs that are being recognized within the family, right? So but the members of family are being taken care of by the state. That's what it means. To help them to raise their children and to help them to have their jobs again, to come back to their jobs after having children, for example, or different. But the members of family are following the policies and laws that are given to them. So I don't know what you mean by, maybe I responded your question, or I don't know what you meant by having a say to, well, the Swedish system or the Nordic system is in a way that the member of society are very close to the state and policy making. So they contribute in how the policies are being made. So they are in very close relations to the state, but also the state has the control still. So it's controlled by the state, and they are the ones who are in power. But this model has a very important role in bringing gender equality. So the labor market and the family and welfare states are working together, having a big role in promoting gender equality. And
if I may interrupt, I think that Nemanja implied that maybe the state becomes too paternalistic and taking responsibilities of parents. I would not say so. Maybe it's more or less paternalistic, but state helps to the family, does not eliminate autonomy of parents in decision making about family issues, but helps, opens opportunities, gives social policy opportunities for matching the needs of regarding childcare, housing, nurturing, etc., education.
Yes, families have their autonomies still, but if they want state's help, they will have to comply with the state's requirement at the same time. So, but they will definitely have their autonomies at the same time. So now I want to talk about Sweden. Yes. So as I said, as you see, Sweden has ranked very high, and this gender equality index shows that Sweden has been staying on the top since 2019, and now it's almost the score is almost the same in 2020 if you compare with 2019. They have this, the Swedish system has been somehow working to be on in the very top list of the gender equality index. So while I'm talking about all these amazing parts about Sweden, I also want you to be very critical while you're hearing me talking about all these very nice gender equal kind of policies. And so we will talk about maybe the negative consequences as well. So Sweden started to introduce the, can you go to the next slide, please? Sweden started working on reforming family policies and all in the 1900s, as I mentioned earlier. So they introduced, for example, unpaid maternal leaves in the 1900s, but it took them many years to introduce quotas for fathers. So it's important to look at this history because the developments of this family policy did not happen overnight. As you can see, it took many years, right? And it has not been something, I think it's easy. There has been, I can't talk about it in this lecture, but there has been a lot of activism and women's movements and negotiations and discussions, as you may know. Next slide. So Sweden, another thing that Sweden did was that to introduce the gender neutral concepts, which was very, very important, I think, in the family policy making. And it was one of the first countries in the world that introduced gender neutral kind of concepts instead of maternity leave or maternal leave or paternity leave to parental leave, which was very, very important. I think that had very good effects. And they started it in 1974, which was very important. So this is very good. One of these approaches has helped this whole development of being like on the top of gender equality index, right? Next slide. Next slide. It's about involved fatherhood. So what Sweden did also, which is very important, is that they involved fathers, involved men like in the family. And so what they did, their approach was to involve fathers, not based on the father's need and however or whichever time he has time he can spend with the child, or whenever he feels like it and the child has to manage with his time. But no, it was child oriented. It was in terms of the involvement, it was based on the child's interest, not him. So the caring time that he had to spend with the child and be attentive whenever child needs it, not whenever the time that he has or based on the father's time schedule. So that was very important, and it has helped very much the development of gender equality in the family and the attitudes. The research has shown the attitudes in the family has changed, the relationships have changed, and more families are going towards egalitarian kind of constructions. So next slide. These are just some developments that has happened in the family policy in Sweden. So I have mentioned some of these early policy makings. So Sweden started giving unpaid maternity leaves very early in the 1930s, and then started child allowance very early as well. So this is just for you to know how the development has started, when and how it's gone where. And then the paid maternity that they used at that time started to be in the 50s. Then the women started to be present more in the labor market, right? So then they had time out of work and they got paid for being out on parental leave. So, and then now, today, as it stands, parental leave in Sweden is 480 days for parents. In some countries, for example, in the US, it's just like maybe 1 month or 3 weeks unpaid. But these 480 is paid parental leave for per child. And then they get compensations, for example, for 13 months. There are daddy days that introduced in Sweden in 1980s. So fathers or parents, they took daddy days 2 weeks at the time of the birth in the 80s, and still some countries in Europe or in North America, they don't give any days leave days for fathers to be involved. So this is what we are talking about, gender equality, right? And there are also exclusive days for fathers that they have to take, otherwise they can't take the leave. It's not reversible, or it's not, they can't give it to the mother or the other parents. So these are all very good developments and progression. We see the progression in the family policy within Sweden. Next slide. And parental benefits is anticipated, for example, for single parents, for parents who have multiple births, for example. There are more parental leaves and benefits for them. Parents who have low income, they get more compensations from the states. Parents who have been registered as job seekers or unemployed, they get benefits, more benefits. Those who are students, also they have different incomes. They don't have incomes, or so they get also benefits from the states. So as you see, all of these are really helpful to care for the family. As I said earlier, the state is involved in the family and allowing the family to be also participating in the labor market. So that is how it is represented in the policy. The next slide, childcare. Childcare. So the childcare is free. For example, public childcare, very good quality childcare. Their parents receive allowance for the childcare, and also there is a flat rate. If they don't receive childcare, then there is some sum that they will be paid after the age of 5 for the childcare. Okay, next slide. As you see, Sweden is known, everywhere we hear, Sweden is known as the forerunner in designing family policy based on gender equality, right? And then they maintaining high rate of female labor participation, labor force participation, without reducing fertility rate in comparison with many European countries. So is that true? We will see. This is the very latest statistics that I have here for you to show. So this is a slide on gender pay gap in Sweden. You can see it's the lowest gender pay gap. Sorry, this is slide 23. Slide 23. We have the gender pay gap in Sweden, which is like very low, very low, if you can see. And slide 24, I want to show you how labor force participation by women is being recorded. So that is like in 2021. This is how 79.9 for women. The older population, for example, and you can see based on the age group. I will show you on the slide 25, men are exactly the same, almost the same, so it's very equal. So if you compare slide 25 and 24, you can see women and then men's participation. In both of them, they're almost similar. So the way they have been participating in the labor force is not very different. So they have somehow equal participation. On slide 26, I want to show you, but the birth rate has decreased. Okay, so they argue that the study shows that Sweden is helping the labor, the family, and also childcare, the labor force. So the rate of the birth rate goes up, but still, this doesn't show that. But there are so many different factors, including the pandemic, that has affected the birth rate in the Nordic countries. That may be part of this, but it is declining here. High sort of coverage and availability of subsidized prices for publicly funded childcare, and it helps to increase women's participation in the labor force. Obviously, it has very positive effect in the labor participation by women or partners, both partners. And parental leave, for example, with they feel secure that they will have their job back when they come back from parental leave. So the security of returning to the employment, especially by women. It's been very important in the gender equality and promotion of gender equality, achieving gender equality in the family. So the quotas that have been introduced, as I said earlier, for fathers, especially in Sweden, not only all the Nordic country, but especially in Sweden, they have shown that the quotas that have been introduced for the fathers intend to take them, actually. especially in the household where the woman or the other partner is educated and has also intention to allow the father to be participating in the household. The father's use of parental leave has had also long-term effects in the family formations and the behaviors in the family. Okay, I'm going to the next slide. The critiques that have been made in slide 27, critiques that have been made, or the negatives, or if you like, the positive effects in the family policy. One of the main things that have been raised is the effect of, it's a boomerang effect. Can someone tell what is boomerang effect? Have you ever heard of the boomerang effect in the policy making, or the policy, the process of policy, introduction of policy making? Boomerang effect, have you heard? No? Okay, so the boomerang effect is basically known when you introduce a policy, but then the effect that you want that policy have is opposite. It's the other way. So now they say that the family policy in Sweden that's been introduced to reach more equality has a boomerang effect, which means it has affected women's participation in the labor market. How that can be affected? How we all talked about the increase of like the women's participation because the childcare is very good and the state has helped parental leave and parental benefits. So how does it have a boomerang effect? If you have listened, it has been argued that it has a boomerang effect and it has affected negatively participation of women in the labor market because women are taking long leave. The generous parental leave has made women to stay home and take care of children for long term, 480 days or 12 months or 11 months. That has affected their jobs because they don't get promotion. They cannot get more like, I don't know, be more present in their workplace, and there has been a glass ceiling effect as well in the labor market. So
and Zara, are there many or a small number of women who do not use the whole period duration of paternity or maternity leave? Because, for example, here at the Faculty of Law, there are many of my female colleagues, they have the right to 12 months maternity leave. We still have this differentiation, but many of them do not use the whole period. They start working earlier.
No, I think in Sweden, the studies and the research have shown that women take as much as they can. And that is why there is a stagnation in their job. That is how there is a glass ceiling as well, because they can't get all the promotions. So their promotions and their climbing the steps in their job stops at some point because they take care of children. And also these all parental leave and parental benefits and all of this is given to the women in the public sector. So women choose public sector. They choose to self-employ themselves in a public sector because they take more parental leave because they have more benefits in the governmental or public employment than the private. So therefore, men are being more present in the private sector. So only 20 to 25% of men are employed in the public or governmental positions. It's mainly women. So that's why they have like they self-select, and it's been proven that that's how it has happened. So therefore, because they want to get more compensation and they get all the leaves, and so So that has happened. But it also, there is another critique that it affects the family's well-being, because the childcare starts very early, and then mothers are, after 1 year, they can have the childcare for free. So the well-being of children is being affected because they don't spend so much time with their parents. That's also another critique. And the leave that they take, they don't parental leaves, they don't get full compensations from when they are on leave. Only 77 point something %. So 70, almost 80%. Not full compensation. And so that is how these are the critics. But what are your thoughts? So now that I have talked, I think I'm exceeding the time because of this PowerPoint situation that we had. But do you have any ideas or anything about how Sweden has been moving towards gender equality or not? How do you think? How are you critical about it, or do you think this is all good? Do you think this is what I presented was based on gender equality? Do you have any ideas? Like Larissa?
Yes. Hello. Now I understand after this critique part, I understand the policy, I think, that Finland introduced, so correct me if I'm wrong, but they made it mandatory that parental leave should be split between a woman and a man, a wife and a husband. So now I understand why. Were there some kind of discussion in Sweden also that it should be mandatory also for men?
Yeah, it's the father has quotas of only 90 days. So the other partner father gets 90 days that he has to spend forced. He cannot give it to the mother. So it's exclusive for him to use it.
So you have that also in Sweden, but
yes.
It's yeah. Okay, maybe that it's some kind of
has more leave, as you can see.
Yeah, in Serbia we have 3 months, which is maternal leave, the first 3 months, and then it's parental leave, and it can be split. I had a case in my family where me and my husband we split. For the third child, we gained here 2 years, and I came back to the university position after 8 months, and the 1 year and 2 months was taken by my husband. So we split. But it was only, it's interesting, in Serbia, I think he was the 148 father who did this in the history of Serbia. So basically, even though we have this law. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. So in Sweden, they introduced the father quota for 3 months in 2016.
Okay.
It was 1 month before. Only like 30 days before, but the research shows that still it's the women who take more, and those 90 days that are exclusive to men or fathers, they tend to take it. But in a household where the woman is more educated and it's a different kind of a class income or social economic class, they are more intended to take the father's quota in those kind of households.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I wanted you to be critical of all of these I presented to you, but we don't have time maybe for discussion at the end, perhaps. But there are things about the Swedish history that it's important to know, mainly in terms of gender equality, and I think it's very relevant here in terms of family policy, creating family policy and development of family policy. Usually is not being, these things that I want to talk about has not been talked very much, which is part of the Nordic history too. So what happened was that eugenic ideologies were used in the Nordic countries to introduce marriage impediments. So in the Nordic countries, there were these ideologies to prevent the spread of defective genes, in quotations, to introduce the marriage impediment. So some people were not allowed to have a marriage. People who were old age, people who were having a lot of children, or they were mentally challenged, immigrants, and some people who were deaf or mute. That was very very common in the early 19th in the Nordic country. But do you remember that the marriage law started to be reformed in the 1900 as well, 1906? So the eugenic kind of approach existed then, and they had also introduced these impediments in the marriage law. So the eugenic feminism also started to develop in the 50s, mainly in Sweden. Sweden was one of the main countries where feminists started to define feminism and women based on the reproduction abilities of women, and womanhood was understood like that. They started to exclude other women, because women who were poor or were immigrants or were disabled from enjoying civil rights. So that was part of the feminism that existed in the history of Sweden. Now this has affected the way family policy is being constructed and is being developed. First of all, you heard me all this time that I was talking about a man and a woman, a man and a woman. There was no talk about any other kind of sexualities. It has come later, it has been introduced later into the family policy, very, very lightly. It doesn't have a very strong presence in the family policy. So the lack of intersectionality is very, very present in the family policy in Sweden. It's based on heteronormativity and gender binary system. There are other sorts of cohabitation and marriages between same-sex and other genders and sexualities that's been recognized by Sweden, but there aren't any other family policies related issues that are being talked about. Parental benefits, parental leave, childcare, assisted reproductive facilities or treatments, for example, for these people, has not been well developed. Okay, go to slide 29. The family policy for non-heterosexual and non-binary genders. It has been very difficult for people who identify as same-sex couples or identify as trans people, for example. Transgender people have been forced to sterilize since until 2013. So they had no right to family. They had no right to be a parent. Their relationships were not recognized in Sweden until 2013, and until today, the assisted reproductive treatments only provided to lesbians, gay couples who need sperms, and to heterosexual cisgender couples. So gay men, trans women, intersex people have no recognition in the policy and are legally forbidden from having access to fertility treatments and assisted reproductive treatments, for example. So egg donation, as I said, it's only legal for opposite sex, and gay men have to adopt, and there is different forms of adoption in Sweden that it's very difficult. Surrogacy is not legal in Sweden, for example. They have to go abroad. Assisted reproductive treatments in terms of surrogacy for gay men is not legal in Sweden. So there are also these kind of restrictions that have been in place in Sweden, which is not, this lecture doesn't give me the time to expand on it, but I want you to be critical of what you hear about the Swedish family law, that it's still not there yet. There are all sorts of very beautiful ways of achieving gender equality within family policy, but it's very much based on white, cisgender kind of a very limited understanding of womanhood and women, and that's how I think we can look at it. So there is a long way to go still in the Swedish.
Okay, sorry for interrupting. I just wanted to ask you a question regarding surrogacy, because I am familiar with surrogacy laws in some international legal provisions. And for example, France and Germany, those are the systems that also forbid surrogacy, but they tend to recognize decisions, surrogacy procedures that were conducted in a country in which surrogacy is allowed, for example, in the United States, in California, to be more precise. So my question is whether Sweden does the same, or is the procedure somewhat different, because here in Serbia we do not have any legal norm regulating such situation. We only stipulate that surrogacy is forbidden, and that is all. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Thanks for your question. Yes, surrogacy, as it is conducted in international context, it is legal, but it's inside the country it's forbidden. But people go outside. For example, US is one of the destinations for Swedes to go for surrogacy, but this whole issue has made it very, like in practice, has made it very difficult for couples to have their surrogacy be legally recognized in Sweden. But it is legal when you do it in international context. That's absolutely the approach. They have mentioned it in the law that if it's conducted somewhere else, it's recognizable by law. Okay, so I think I'm going to finish my my lecture, and I'm very sorry about the PowerPoint situation. I hope that that you enjoyed it. If you have any other comments or questions or something to add, maybe you have 5 minutes to do that. Is that okay?
5-10 minutes, because this really was a very, very important lecture, and many of the colleagues can put. I will wait for them, and then I will also ask you something. Da?
I'm sorry, I just have another question. I wanted to ask whether the adoption procedure when it comes to gay men is somewhat different in comparison to adoption when we speak about a heterosexual couple. That was also my question, and thank you very much.
Thank you. I think it's almost the same, unless that adoption for gay men, it can be national and international. It's all the same, but I think they recognize adoption as for gay men as being a foster parent in Sweden. So that's how I think it is legally referred to. Yeah, I think it is. It's like that, but I don't have any details about adoption, about how the procedure goes for gay men, but it's almost, I think, similar to heterosexual couples.
Are there other?
And they allowed adoption for same-sex couples in 2003 in Sweden, and since then, like it has been very, very bureaucratic. That the first adoption happened in 2012 in the whole country among gay men.
The reason I asked was because in Germany, from what I have read, the adoption procedure, when speaking about the baby born through surrogacy, I'm not talking about gay men at the moment, but just the adoption procedure, for example, in such cases is only allowed if that is necessary for the best interest of the child. Not only if it is for the best interest of the child, but if it's necessary. So I just wanted to ask you whether there is some specific provision distincting gay men from heterosexual couples, and that was all. But thank you for your answer and the clarification.
You're absolutely no. It's a very, very, very long procedure, and based on so many examinations and evaluations of the gay couple. And one of the necessary conditions is that they should be married. They should be married. So marriage is the condition for adoption for gay couples as well. So that's the difference. So the literature and the studies show that it's very, very brutal for gay couples to achieve these rights, and it's been very hard to have adoptions by gay men. In practice, there's so many different ways and attitudes and bias against gay couples, especially like when two men want to raise a child. It's still the attitude is not very egalitarian or equal as we see in the cisgender or heterosexual couples.
So if I may comment, the achievements, the range of gender equality achievements in Sweden are something which many countries, including Serbia, can consider as the wishful thinking, something very far from our experiences and achievements. Obviously, there are also in Sweden too many things, very many things to be done further in this direction of gender equality improvement. So also in Sweden. But if I may dare to ask you, Zara, due to your personal and professional life experience, could you compare, for example, controversies in regards of gender inequality and more or less achievements and more or less, on the other side, obstacles for gender equality in the case of Iran and Sweden?
That's a very interesting question.
I apologize, but I really had to put this question. You can explain why I ask this question to the participants if you want.
To be honest, I cannot compare the Iranian family, for example, let's just stick with the family policy or family law, to the Swedish one. No way close at all. I think we have like 100 years of activism or work to do to be able to reach that, because first of all, the Islamic Republic of Iran has made the family law based on a very strict Islamic fundamentalist approach to family, and as a political kind of interpretation of Islam and political use of Islamic laws, family law is the most strict, and women have no rights in the family policy or family laws in no right to divorce, no right to choose the place of living, no right to custody, nothing. So it's not yet even discussed that women have to have these rights. Women's participation in labor market due to child bearing or childcare is very, very low. So there is no compensation or benefits as much we see in Sweden. So it's very bad. It's very unequal. It's not, there is no gender equality there.
Excuse me, Professor, because I studied law in Iran, and now my colleagues are asking, is it truth that there is no right of custody? Somehow yes, somehow not, because till 7 years old, mothers can have the custody of children. And about divorce, you are right, there is almost no right, but you see women are divorcing easily because of the case of mahr. Because you know how huge amount of money or golden coins they should receive for mahr, and you know there are a lot of, I don't want to say that's a justified or it's the best solution, for sure it's not, but you know there are a lot of men in jail these days because of mahr.
Yes, I agree with you, but women should not have this initiative or these strategies to ask for their rights. It has to be equal, right? It has to be recognized equally. So there are very, very, very beautifully implemented the initiatives by women themselves on the ground, so that they go around the law and they make themselves visible and they ask for their rights in different ways. But it is not given to them by the law or by society. They have to fight for it, and men don't do that. Or so yeah, the custody battle is a huge debate in Iran, and women, to begin with, it depends on the judge, it depends on the court you go through with, which mostly very masculine, like male dominated, no interests of women so far, and unless you have a very like active women lawyer who is pro women's rights, you can't like win the custody battle. Usually it's by law, it's given after 7 years old for a child, but I think that's not fair even either. So anyway, I would say in a nutshell that the family policy in Iran was gone through reform, and it was going to get somewhere, but the fundamentalist state, the government, has stopped it. So activists have worked on it. There is a very new, based on modern kind of egalitarian family policies. There is a proposed family bill, but it has never gone through the parliament to be sanctioned or verified, because there is no way that women can have their voices heard. So it's not that women activists have not worked, and women's groups have also drafted different forms of gender equal family policy, but it has never been gone that far.
Thank you, Zara, very much. I think there are no more questions. It really was a wonderful presentation, and offered us a lot of knowledge about the best possible up to nowadays, and the most achieving approach to family and gender equality within family. Unfortunately, we do not have more time for some kind of the comparative reconsideration. We started from Sweden and Iran, but we could have involved also Afghanistan or the worst other possible examples, and analyzing what has been going on globally speaking. But the next time, promise us that you will take part again and also talk about that. If you have something else to conclude, and then we can go on with another lecture. Would you like to say something else?
No, I just want to thank you, Dragica, for giving me this opportunity to do this lecture here, and I was very happy, and I hope that all the audience and all the other students have enjoyed this. And yeah, thank you so much. That's I don't have anything else to add.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And Zara will have to leave. She said that in advance. So thank you very much, Zara.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Thank you. Now, Letizia, you will share and our IT will help you if you will need help.
Okay, so I will try and share the screen. Okay.
So 5 minutes or 3 minutes break for all the participants.
Okay.